I didn't think I'd ever come back to Alaska. But when they called about Noah's funeral in Anchorage, I didn't even hesitate. The service was small, military, quiet. A handful of people from outpost Eden, all standing in a white field of snow, pretending they didn't see each other's guilt. The priest's words fogged into the cold air and vanished before they ever reached the sky. Noah Halpern. They said he froze to death. That's the official line. Exposure during transport. Exposure? They said again and again, the words scraping through my head like a shovel hitting stone. That's what they write when the truth doesn't fit in the report. Noah wasn't reckless. He was the careful one, the guy who double-checked every seal, every cable, every breath we took down there. If he froze to death, it wasn't because of the weather. When the service ended, I watched them lower the flag-draped casket into the ground. Snowflakes gathered on the metal before the first handful of dirt covered it. Captain Reeves was there too, the same man who ordered the site sealed after the incident. He stood still the entire time, gloved hands behind his back, face unreadable. When I approached him, he barely turned his head. "Let it stay buried, Vance," he said. Then he walked away, leaving boot prints that filled with snow almost instantly. I stayed until everyone left. The wind died, and for a moment the cemetery was so quiet I could hear the ice shift beneath the ground. That's when I noticed Claire Halpern, Noah's sister, standing by the tree line. She looked nothing like I remembered. Pale, hollow, like she'd already seen what was waiting for us. She didn't say a word, just nodded once, as if she knew I'd come looking. That night back at the motel, I couldn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I heard that low static hum again, the one from the dig site. Unless it rose through the dark like a heartbeat trapped under miles of ice. "We didn't seal it," I heard Noah's voice say. "We only slowed it down." I thought the cold had buried everything we did out there. But lately, I think the ice remembers. I first arrived at Outpost Eden in the winter of 2018. A patch of metal buildings and antenna towers half buried in snow, sitting somewhere between the Yukon border and the edge of nowhere. The place wasn't on any civilian map. Officially, it was a meteorological telemetry site. Just weather balloons, seismic sensors, ice core samples. But every one of us knew there was more to it. You don't fly in engineers, linguists, and an entire communications unit just to check the wind. There were 10 of us on the active roster. Captain Reeves was in command, always wearing that spotless parka. Always silent during meals. Noah Halpern was my partner in maintenance. Smart, patient, the kind of guy who could fix a generator with a wrench and duct tape. Then there was Dylan Reese, communications tech. Dr. Holland from geology. 2 weather officers and a pair of private contractors whose names I don't even remember anymore. Our days were simple. We checked equipment, logged readings, and tried to keep warm. The wind never stopped. It screamed across the ice like something alive, bending antenna masts until they sang. The horizon was a flat white nothing that made you forget which way was north. Nights were worse. That's when the station felt hollow, like the entire world had gone silent, except for the metal frame groaning in the wind. We passed time with bad coffee and worse jokes. Noah used to play cards in the lab, always humming the same song, some old folk tune about rivers and home. I remember thinking how peaceful it sounded, surrounded by all that endless white. Then, one morning, the sensors flagged a heat anomaly. A pocket under the permafrost, warmer than it should have been. Dr. Holland said it was subsurface methane, but her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Captain Reeves ordered a dig team assembled. That was the first time I saw Noah hesitate.
"It's just data," he told me. "We'll take samples, fill a report, fly home." He always said that when he didn't believe it himself. The excavation started slow. We cut through layers of ice like glass, blue, clear, and impossibly thick. By the fourth day, the drill hit something solid. The sound it made wasn't right, not rock, not metal. It rang. When we cleared the hole enough to look down, we saw the edge of a structure. Smooth, dark stone covered in patterns like frostbite veins. No seams, no tool marks. It looked grown, not built. We sent photos through the encrypted uplink. Command replied in less than an hour. Cease documentation. Await further instruction. That was all. No explanation. Reeves shut down the uplink and told us to focus on maintenance, but the next morning, the hum started. It came from below the ice, low and steady, almost like power lines. At first, I thought it was interference in our headsets. Then we cut the power to test it, and the hum got louder. Noah recorded it with the seismic mics. The waveform wasn't like any vibration pattern we'd ever logged. Perfectly symmetrical, repeating every 12 seconds. Dylan said it looked like a pulse. We joked about it that night, called it the frozen heartbeat, but no one laughed long. After midnight, the wind stopped. Every machine in the outpost shut itself off, generators, lights, even the radios. For 30 seconds, there was nothing but that hum rising through the floor. It felt like standing on top of something alive. When the systems came back online, we found the temperature inside the main corridor had dropped 10 degrees. Only inside, not outside. Frost patterns crawled across the walls in shapes that looked like letters. Dr. Holland took photos and refused to show anyone. 2 days later, the snowcats that brought supplies never arrived. Command stopped answering our calls. Reeves locked the uplink room and told us not to ask questions. Noah did what he always did, kept working. He said the storm probably cut our line, but I saw the way he stared at the floor whenever the hum returned, tapping his finger in time with it, like he was hearing a rhythm the rest of us couldn't. "You ever think maybe it's not coming from below?" he asked me one night. "What do you mean?" "Maybe it's not sound. Maybe it's memory." I laughed it off then. We all did. But that was before the cracks started forming. Not in the ice, but in us. Before we realized something under Alaska wasn't frozen, just waiting. The storm hit on the 8th day after the hum began. Winds over 70 knots. Whiteout conditions. Visibility, 0. Command never called. Our last uplink log said, "Transmission interrupted. Maintain position." That was it. For the next 3 days, we were completely cut off. The sky turned the color of dirty steel. Snow came sideways, biting through every crack in the walls. The hum never stopped. It was like the storm itself was echoing it back. Noah barely slept. He started carrying a small recorder in his jacket pocket, clicking it on whenever the noise peaked. He said he wanted to map its rhythm. But soon he didn't need the recorder. He could time it by heart. "Every 12 seconds, he whispered once, staring at the floor. Like breathing. On the 4th night, I woke to the sound of boots in the hall. When I checked, Noah was standing in front of the sealed hatch leading to the dig site. His parka hood was down, frost in his hair, eyes fixed on the ice. "Noah," I said, "what the hell are you doing?" He didn't answer. He just leaned close to the metal and whispered something, too soft to catch. Then he pressed his ear against it, smiling like he was listening to music. "It's not trying to hurt us," he said. "It's trying to talk." The next morning we found new cracks spiderwebbing through the ice trench.
The geothermal readouts showed a steady rise in temperature beneath the site. Dr. Holland wanted to evacuate. Reeves refused. He said if we abandoned our post, it would be career suicide. That's when Dylan snapped. He smashed a coffee mug against the wall and shouted, "We're already buried! You think anyone's coming back for us?" Reeves didn't even flinch. He just told us to get back to work, like none of it mattered. By then I wasn't sure it did. That afternoon the lights flickered again. The hum dropped in pitch, deeper, slower. When it hit, everything in the lab vibrated just slightly, like the world itself exhaled. Every monitor froze on static, but the waveform display kept moving on its own. Noah's recorder picked up a modulation we hadn't seen before. Faint, rhythmic pulses layered over the baseline hum. He played it back through the main console. It sounded like a voice buried inside white noise. If you listened long enough, you could almost hear words. Dilling stormed out of the room. Dr. Holland unplugged her headset and muttered something about language formation. But Noah kept listening. He slowed the playback, filtered it, isolated the frequencies. What came out was impossible. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language I knew. But the pattern, the cadence, it almost matched human speech. And somehow, Noah understood it. He turned to me with tears in his eyes. "It remembers, Luke," he said. "It's been waiting for someone to answer." That was the first time he called me Luke. He never used nicknames. Something in his voice made the room feel smaller, like the walls were closing in. That night we heard footsteps in the corridor, heavy ones, like someone walking barefoot on the metal floor. Reeves ordered a head count. Everyone was accounted for. We followed the sound to the comms bay, and the door was ajar. Inside, all the radios were turned on. The speakers hissed faint static, and in the middle of that hiss was the hum, repeating like a heartbeat. Then, for the first time, it said my name. Vance. It wasn't Noah's voice. It was deeper, slower, like it was being learned as it was spoken. We cut power to the bay and the sound died instantly. When we rebooted the grid, half the equipment refused to start again. Every circuit fried. Reeves locked the area down, ordered everyone to stay in pairs. We lasted maybe 6 hours before the next break. Around 3 a.m., Dylan shook me awake. His hands were trembling. "There's someone outside," he said. I grabbed my flashlight and followed him to the loading bay window. The storm had cleared. Moonlight washed over the snow, bright and silent. And there, half buried near the trench, was a figure. At first I thought it was a pile of gear, a parka or a crate, but then it moved. It was standing perfectly still, face turned toward the outpost. No goggles, no light. Just pale skin and hair crusted with ice. When I shined my beam on it, it blinked. Dylan whispered, "That's Noah." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that it was just snow or shadow. But deep down, I recognized the shape. The slouch in the shoulders, the line of the jaw. It was Noah. Only Noah was sleeping in the barracks. We ran to wake him, but his bunk was empty. The recorder was gone. Reeves ordered a search party, but by the time we got outside, the figure was gone. Just footprints leading toward the dig site. And then nothing. By morning, the trench was half collapsed. Noah's parka was found near the edge, ripped clean through as if something had pulled it apart from inside. His recorder lay beside it, still running. The audio was distorted, full of static and wind. But between the noise there was a single phrase, clear as day. "It's awake." We buried what was left of his gear that afternoon. Reeves filed the report himself, marked Noah as KIA. None of us spoke during the service. That night, the hum returned stronger than ever, and this time it came with a rhythm. Every 12 seconds, a knock from beneath the floor. And in between those knocks, silence so heavy it felt alive. Dylan didn't speak for hours. When he finally did, his voice cracked. "It's not under us anymore, Luke." He pointed to the vent above our bunks. It's around us. After that night, nothing felt real anymore. After Noah disappeared, time stopped working right inside Outpost Eden. We lost the sun for 6 days straight. The clocks disagreed by hours even though they were all digital. Reeves said it was magnetic interference, but nobody bought that. We moved through the outpost like ghosts, sleeping in shifts, whispering when we talked at all. The hum never left. It pulsed through the walls, through the floor, through us. Sometimes I could feel it in my teeth. Dylan was the first to crack. He stopped eating, stopped logging entries, and just sat by the window facing the trench. Sometimes I'd find him mumbling to himself. When I got close enough to hear, he wasn't talking in English anymore. "It's still singing," he told me once. "You just have to listen long enough, and it starts to sound like home." On the 7th day, Dr. Holland vanished too. Her parka and gloves were still hanging by the door. The only thing missing was her recorder. Reeves sealed off her lab and announced over the intercom that she'd self-evacuated. None of us believed that either. By then, the cold inside the outpost wasn't normal anymore. The frost on the walls didn't melt even when we heated the air to 90 degrees. It formed shapes, arcs, spirals, lines that looped back on themselves like writing. When I scraped them off, they grew back within minutes. That night, I heard Reeves pacing outside my bunk. He stopped in front of my door and said, "Vance, you hear it too, don't you?" I didn't answer. "Good," he said after a pause. "Then you understand why we can't leave. It's not finished yet." He walked away, and for the first time I realized Reeves wasn't trying to contain the thing beneath the ice. He was waiting for it. The next morning, the power grid failed completely. The only light left came from the emergency lanterns, pale green, flickering like swamp fire. The hum had grown louder now, rhythmic, layered. Between every pulse there was something else, a whisper half hidden by static. When I went to check the generator bay, I found the door open. Inside, Dylan was kneeling in front of the fuel cell, head tilted as if listening. The hum vibrated so hard I felt it in my ribs. I shouted his name. Nothing. Then he turned his head slowly toward me. His eyes were open, but there was frost inside them, fine white crystals tracing down from the corners. His lips moved without sound. I stepped closer, and he finally spoke. "It wants warmth." I pulled him back from the machine and hit the kill switch. The hum stopped for exactly 12 seconds. Then it came back, twice as loud. Dylan started laughing. "See, it heard us." Reeves appeared behind me, gun drawn. "Step away," he ordered. I tried to explain. He wouldn't listen. He grabbed Dylan by the collar and dragged him down the hall, saying something about containment. That was the last time I saw Dylan alive. Hours later, I heard the shot, then silence, then the hum again, steady as ever. I found Reeves in the comms room. Dylan's body was on the floor, covered by a tarp. The console beside him was still recording. On the screen, the waveform pulsed perfectly in time with Dylan's last heartbeat. Reeves didn't look up. "It's learning faster," he said. "Every time one of us listens, it gets closer." His voice cracked. "We should have burned the site." I told him we needed to leave, head south while we still could. He shook his head.
There's nowhere to go. It's in the storm now. It's in the signal. The minute we call for help, it'll ride the transmission out." I thought he'd lost it, until I noticed the radio lights blinking on their own. The transmitter was broadcasting, though no one had touched it.
The hum was in the signal, stretching across the wavelengths like veins of static. I yanked the power cord. Reeves lunged at me, screaming, "You'll kill us all!" We fought, two exhausted men clawing at each other in the half-light. I slammed him against the console. Something cracked. He fell and didn't move again. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard the knock. 3 sharp hits from beneath the floor. Then 12 seconds of silence. Then 3 more. I ran to the hatch leading to the trench tunnel. Frost bloomed around the hinges as if something was breathing on the other side. I remember shouting Noah's name. I don't know why. Maybe part of me thought he was still down there. When I opened the hatch, warm air hit my face. Warm, not cold. The tunnel glowed faintly blue. The deeper I went, the louder the hum became, until it wasn't a sound anymore but a pressure in my chest. The trench walls pulsed with light, veins of pale energy running through the ice like arteries. Halfway down I saw footprints, bare, human, leading into the dark. At the end of the tunnel, the ice opened into a cavity the size of a cathedral. The air shimmered like heat above asphalt. And in the center, half buried in frozen mist, was the door. It wasn't a door exactly, more like a slab of black stone, smooth and curved, with patterns that shifted when I looked at them. The hum came from it, no, through it, as if the ice was a speaker and the whole world was vibrating with whatever was inside. Something was moving beneath the surface, slow, deliberate, almost human in shape. I called out, "Noah?" The hum stopped. Everything stopped. Then a single hand pressed against the stone from the other side. It was pale blue, veins glowing like thin light bulbs under skin. The fingers curled once, like testing the air. Then they pushed. The ice cracked. The floor buckled. I stumbled back, slipped, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the corridor, covered in frost. The hatch was closed behind me, sealed from the inside. Reeves was gone. The comms were dead. The outpost was silent, truly silent, for the first time in weeks. I found Dylan's recorder in my pocket. It was still running. On the tape, there was no hum, just breathing. My breathing. And beneath it, a voice. Soft, calm, familiar. "It's warmer here, Luke." I dropped the recorder and ran. Outside, the storm had cleared. The trench was gone, filled with snow as if it had never been there. But the sky above Outpost Eden glowed faint green, like an aurora that refused to move. I kept walking until my radio picked up a faint signal. Rescue frequency. They found me 30 miles south the next morning, half frozen and babbling about something alive in the ice. They told me I was the only survivor. But later, in the med tent, when they played back my distress call, I heard it again. The hum, faint but steady, underneath my voice. And when the medic leaned close to check my pulse, she froze for a second. "Your heartbeat," she whispered. "It's repeating." They said I'd been unconscious for nearly 2 days when the rescue team found me. Exposure, dehydration, mild frostbite. Standard for Arctic recovery. I woke up in a medical tent outside Fairbanks. The ceiling was canvas, yellowed by lamplight. For a moment, I thought I was still inside Outpost Eden. The same flicker of emergency light, the same antiseptic smell of recycled air. A nurse leaned over me, face hidden behind a thermal mask. "You're safe now, Mr. Vance," she said. "You're in Fairbanks. Try to rest." But when she touched my wrist to check my pulse, she paused, just for a second. Then she smiled like nothing happened. I should have realized right then. The next few days blurred together. Interviews, debriefings, constant tests. They said the storm had taken out half the facility, that the rest of the team was confirmed dead. I kept asking about Captain Reeves, about Dylan. They just looked at each other and said, "You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Vance." But luck had nothing to do with it. The man in charge of the investigation introduced himself as Dr. Carter Wells, civilian liaison for Project Winterlight. He wasn't military, no insignia, no rank, just a gray suit and eyes that didn't blink enough. He asked the same questions every day. How deep was the excavation? When did the sound begin? Did you make physical contact with the source? I told him the truth, or as much as I could remember. He took notes, nodded, never reacted. But each time I said the word hum, he'd glance toward the corner of the tent where an old radio sat unplugged. "We've heard similar reports before," he finally said. "From where?" I asked. He smiled thinly. "You wouldn't believe me. After a week, they moved me to a recovery ward at Fort Marin Base Hospital. Clean walls, white lights, no windows.
They said it was for my safety.
Every night I'd lie awake and listen. Even with the generators running, even with all the hospital noise, there was something underneath. Not loud, just enough to make the air vibrate. 12 seconds apart. A rhythm I couldn't forget. Sometimes I caught my reflection in the metal sink. My lips moved out of sync. The doctors said it was trauma. Hypothermia can cause auditory hallucinations. But they didn't see what I saw. On the third night, I woke to static. The hospital's intercom crackled, though no one was speaking. Then, faintly, beneath the distortion, came a voice. "Luke." I sat up, heart pounding. The sound wasn't coming from the speakers. It was inside the room, like it was bleeding through the walls. I tore the panel open. Nothing, just wires. When I called for the nurse, she came running. I asked if she heard it too. She hesitated, then said, "There's no one on the intercom this late." But her hands were shaking when she turned it off. The hum didn't stop. The next morning, Dr. Wells visited again. He didn't sit this time. He just stood by the door studying me. "You said the hum stopped when the outpost collapsed," he said. I nodded. "Then why are you still hearing it?" He didn't ask like a man worried about my sanity. He asked like a man taking notes on an experiment. I told him I didn't know, that maybe it was in my head. He looked unconvinced. Then he pulled a small recorder from his pocket. Old-fashioned, analog, same model Noah used. He clicked it on and set it on my bedside table. "We've been picking up residual audio from your medical monitors," he said. "I want you to listen." He pressed play. Static. Then, faint but real, came the hum. Low, symmetrical, 12 seconds apart. "See?" I said. "It's not just me." But he shook his head. "No, this was recorded before you regained consciousness." Something cold slid down my spine. "What does that mean?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just picked up the recorder, rewound the tape, and turned the volume up. And at the 30-second mark, there was breathing. My breathing. Then between two pulses, a whisper. "We're still under the ice." Wells stopped the tape. "That voice isn't yours." He left without another word. After that, the nurses stopped coming as often. My meals arrived sealed in plastic. The guards outside my door changed every few hours, never making eye contact. I started writing everything down, times, noises, how long between the hums. It was always 12 seconds, always, until the 12th day, when it changed. The hum shortened, 10 seconds, then 9. It was getting closer. That night the power failed. The room plunged into darkness except for the faint red glow of the emergency exit sign. And in that light I saw it. A figure standing at the foot of my bed, skin pale, clothes torn, eyes the color of melted snow. Noah. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there while frost crawled across the floor toward me. I reached for the call button. Dead. The air turned heavy, wet, like breathing through ice water. "You shouldn't have left," he said. But the voice wasn't his. It came from everywhere. The hum returned, so loud it rattled the metal frame of the bed. My ears bled. The walls began to sweat, condensation running like veins. I covered my head and screamed until my throat tore. When I opened my eyes, the room was empty. The frost was gone. The monitors beeped normally. The door was still locked from the outside. They told me I'd had a breakdown, said there was no power failure, no noise. But I know what I saw. Or what saw me. 4. The following morning, Wells didn't come. Instead, 2 soldiers entered, masks on, carrying sealed cases marked Eden. They told me I was being relocated for extended evaluation. I asked where. They didn't answer. The transport plane took off that evening. No windows, no markings. Just the sound of the engines, and under it that same pulse. I counted the seconds. 10, 9, 8. It kept changing. By the time we landed, the hum had synced with my heartbeat. They moved me into another facility, underground this time. The air smelled of bleach and metal. My room had no clocks. I asked for one. They said I wouldn't need it. Days blurred again, or weeks, I don't know. They kept testing me. Blood, MRI, neurological scans. Every time they looked at each other when they saw the results. Finally, Wells returned. He looked tired now. Suit wrinkled, eyes red. "I need you to see something," he said. He led me down a hallway lined with glass. Behind each window was a hospital bed, and someone in it. People I recognized. Dr. Holland, Dillon, even Captain Reeves. Their bodies were pale, motionless, hooked up to machines. Frost bloomed along their veins like silver roots. Wells stopped at the last window. The man inside was me. Same face, same scars. Eyes closed, chest rising and falling slow and steady. "That's not possible," I said. Wells didn't look at me. "We found you twice, Vance. Once in the outpost and once outside it. Both alive." He turned to face me then. "We're still not sure which one you are." The hum started again, faint but present, vibrating through the walls, through the glass. The lights flickered. Behind the window, the other me opened his eyes. They were completely white. He looked straight at me and whispered something I couldn't hear. Frost spread across the inside of the glass, forming the same symbols we'd seen in the ice trench. "Shut it down!" Wells shouted, but the lights exploded. Everything went black. When I came to, I was back in my bed, wrists strapped, IVs in both arms. Outside my room, I could hear shouting, alarms, boots, someone yelling containment breach. The hum had become constant now, no longer pulsing. I managed to pull one hand free and tore the IVs out. My blood steamed in the cold air. Down the hall, I saw frost crawling along the ceiling, the same pattern as before. And beneath it, voices, dozens of them, all saying the same word. Return. I ran. Past the nurse's station, past the generator room, past the flickering emergency lights. The corridor twisted like it was breathing.
The hum followed, echoing in perfect sync with my pulse. When I burst through the final door, I found myself not outside, but in the ice. The walls were frozen, glowing faint blue. My breath fogged in the air. The hum was deafening now. And there, ahead of me, stood the door again. Black stone, veins of light pulsing through it. Noah stood beside it. He smiled. Smiling. "It was never about the outpost," he said. "It was about you." I fell to my knees. My skin burned with cold. Behind the door something moved, a vast shadow pressing against the surface. "What is it?" I asked. Noah tilted his head. "It's not a what, it's a when." The hum shifted pitch, higher now, faster, almost like a countdown. The ice cracked beneath me. Light burst through every seam. "Don't fight it, Luke," Noah said. "You were the first to listen. That means it remembers you best." The door began to open. I woke up screaming. Hospital lights, white ceiling. The same nurse leaning over me, same mask, same voice. "You're safe now, Mr. Vance. Try to rest." But this time I noticed the frost on her gloves, and behind her, in the reflection of the monitor, a second me sitting up on the bed, smiling. "If this is still Alaska," I whispered, "then maybe Alaska was never real." This will be my last recording. I don't know where I am anymore. The walls keep changing. Sometimes white, sometimes ice, sometimes nothing at all. Every time I blink, I hear that low pulse behind my eyes. They stopped coming into the room 3 days ago. The lights don't turn off. There's no window, no door, just the hum. It's inside everything now. The air, the floor, even the pauses between my thoughts. I've been trying to count the seconds to prove time still works. 12, 11, 10, 9. It never reaches 1. I used to think Outpost Eden was a place, a structure in the cold. Now I think it was a seed. And maybe I was the soil. Sometimes I see Noah standing at the end of the room. Not like before, not frozen, not dead. Just watching. He doesn't speak anymore. He doesn't need to. Because when the hum rises, I already know what it's saying. Remember. I've stopped fighting it. The doctors, or whatever wore their faces, said the same thing. That resistance only delays the merge. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's why I'm still here. If anyone finds this tape, if this voice still sounds human, don't go north. Don't answer the signal. Don't dig where the ice feels warm. They'll tell you it's data, research, progress. It isn't. It's memory. Old and alive and patient. I understand now what Noah meant when he said it wasn't a what, but a when. It's not trapped beneath the ice. The ice is it. A slow, frozen heartbeat counting down to the next thaw. And maybe when that happens, when the hum finally syncs with the sky again, the world won't freeze. It'll remember. I can hear it now through the recorder. The hum's getting louder. Every 12 seconds it breathes with me, and between those breaths, I think it's learning my name. If you hear this, don't come looking. Because whatever walked out of Alaska wearing my face, that's not me anymore.